Thank you for tuning into the DDT Method podcast. I'm your host, Drew Donaldson, and today I get to sit down with both Joe Sullivan and Brianny Terry to discuss all things performance and to particularly go into detail on how Joe's transitioned recently from powerlifting into bodybuilding. Joe and Brianny are both incredibly well accomplished in the worlds of both bodybuilding and powerlifting, and they're incredibly intelligent coaches as well. You're in for a treat with this one today, and we're going to give you a couple new perspectives that might change the way that you approach things. This is the DDT Method podcast with Joe Sullivan and Brianny Terry. All right, welcome back to the DDT Method podcast. This week, we're bringing you guys something really cool. I've got Joe and Brianny here, and we're going to go into all things training, all things nutrition, all things supplementation, but for a very unique situation. And it's unique because for anybody that doesn't know Joe, Joe is one of the most well-known powerlifters that's active today, even though technically, I guess you're not active in powerlifting right now, but you're known, or you have been known predominantly as one of the guys in powerlifting. Brianny, you're already known as kind of a multi-sport athlete because you've already had accomplishments in bodybuilding and powerlifting, and both of you guys are very well respected in both of those worlds. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, that hasn't been following, Joe just competed in his first, and that was your first bodybuilding competition, correct?
Yep.
Awesome. So as I kind of came up in the industry, one of the things that always kind of captivated me and took my attention was different training styles in terms of energy systems, in terms of different supplementation approaches for different types of training, and everything in between that. So that's led me to approach some of the guests that you guys have seen on the show before, like Jake Benson, like Andy Triana, like Alex Keuchel. And this is another unique look into that world. And it's one from somebody that just kind of switched sports, or not kind of, literally switched sports, and had to apply different things at different times under the watchful eye of a coach who also happens to be his significant other. And we can get into some of that stuff too, because I'm sure that was an interesting dynamic at times. Yeah. I have a standing rule. I do not prep the misses for anything. I'm not even going to get into that, but let's jump right into it. Before we really get into like the specifics of this prep and things that were different, if you guys can just give us a little bit of a rundown on your backgrounds in your own words, and just as much or as little as you want to say, and then we'll just dive into the prep itself.
Go ahead. Yeah, okay, fine. I was like, you're gonna lead, but so with my background, like I have been a power lifter since 2007. I've literally been doing that for over half of my life, and my most recent powerlifting competition was 2023. A lot of people know who I am because I had that crazy viral video in 2018 where the barbell bent around my back. And while that was a defining moment in my career because of how much visibility it brought me as the individual, it was also a defining moment in my career because I experienced a compression fracture of my C6, C7, and resulted in a nerve compression injury of my dorsal scapular nerve and my thoracodorsal nerves. If somebody isn't familiar with nerve compression injuries, they can be as like flaccid of a result as something where it's like, oh, it's kind of annoying and you can work past it after the initial onset, or it can be disastrous where I went, which is what happened to me, because I went from being able to bench press 565 pounds to not being able to do a push-up without my scapula winging, and my left tricep, lat, and pec atrophied incredibly in 2018, and it took me 5 years to come back from that. But the reason I say that as career defining is because that is kind of the thing that forced me to start developing my perspective, where I really have to, or could only keep improving if I was willing to look outside of the box and explore as many different avenues as possible for improvement or recovery or whatever as possible. That's where I got linked up with my dear friend who just recently passed away, Andrew Locke. What's going on? Like, a bunch of my friends who helped me get through this are dead. That's fucked up. That's crazy. Andrew Locke helped me come back from that injury. He was one of the leading researchers in physiotherapy and like spinal rehab out of Australia. Chris Daly was a functional neurologist who helped me really kind of delve into the vestibular system and how that aspect of like vision related to mechanics, related to movement, related to neuromotor control was an it's an underutilized and underfocused avenue that a lot of people don't consider, but it was a way to drive up my recovery very quickly, or much quicker than it could have been, or of a greater magnitude. Also dead. And then working with Andy, Triana, working with Jake, having some conversations with Keichel. Actually, like, I've spoken to, I know I'm buddies with all the people you've had on here already, so it makes a lot of sense. But it was an endeavor, and it is a perspective that I carry to this day, because I think it's a lot more valuable for individuals to look at things with an open mind and consider themselves always available to learning and improvement and changing positions and perspectives and opinions and approaches and blah, blah, blah. And that's where I am now, because as I have stepped away from powerlifting in the current state and kind of become the bodybuilder, the amateur bodybuilder that I am, I'm also still of the mind that there's always more to learn. There's always more avenues to uncover and other things to consider as you go forward. So even though I am known as really, like, I've made a name for myself or become like visible as a Joe Sullivan powerlifter, I really hope as I continue through my career and get into the 20-year, 30-year, 40-year mark, it's more along the lines of Joe Sullivan, the guy who's always willing to try new things, learn new things, and apply new things to get himself better and then get his people better. So that's me in a nutshell.
Jesus, that's hard to follow.
Talk a lot.
Yeah. I'm Brianny Terry. I am a elite powerlifter and IFBB Pro in women's physique. I started powerlifting in 2017, so when Joe was already a decade into this. And I experienced a lot of success very quickly within the sport. I think more quickly than I was actually ready for, because I hit my first all-time world record about sub 2 years within the sport. So I'm kind of known as the deadlift girl, because that's what I'm best at. Most recently hitting the heaviest of all time, regardless of weight class, at 646 pounds. I've been powerlifting, so I guess that's about 8 years or so, like that, almost 9 years. And recently in 2022, I decided to delve into bodybuilding, where I competed for the first time. I won my first show. I got fourth at my first nationals. Then most recently, the last time I was on bodybuilding stage in 2023, I won my pro card. Currently in between sports right now, as my current focus is bodybuilding, but I still have a lot that I want to accomplish within powerlifting, such as deadlifting 700 pounds. So still young. So that's something that I want to go to, but I want to see how well I fare in bodybuilding. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Awesome.
Yeah. Not as much trials and tribulations as Joe.
So, I mean, it's probably for the best, because, I mean, yes, in a good relationship, you got to balance the trauma with the lack thereof, I think. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah, but that's actually hilarious, because my previous call at 9 a.m. was therapy. So isn't that fucking topical, guys?
Well, my therapy call is actually after this one, so we'll all bookend it with our own mental wellness and whatnot. But nonetheless, you guys provide such a unique perspective, and kind of going back to what you were saying, Joe, I think what it all comes down to is always being coachable and always being open to the fact that nobody knows everything, and really wanting to learn not just what to do, but why things work and how they work. So I think the biggest thing missing, if I had to encompass like what's wrong with the industry, if I want to sit here and be like Clint Eastwood on my front porch, like saying get off my lawn to all the kids on TikTok, would be that, like, stop talking in an echo chamber and stop just listening to, oh, we take tren because tren is good, and then I remove carbs because I get lean on low carbs, and say that's bodybuilding or that's performance. It all comes down to like the very minutiae details of how all these things are working, and that's what I'm so excited to really dive into on a level that's digestible for the regular consumer. So let's get into the transition over to bodybuilding or physique sports from strength sports, because obviously you already had a tremendous foundation in muscle built, but obviously these are two completely different training approaches. Let's start on the more basic stuff. Let's look at diet. Where did you guys have to adjust things based on what you were eating and how you were eating before? And how do we transition that into a prep element? And what type of diet did you structure? When did you know what to add, what to take away? What type of variety did you have? Did you have no variety? Like, how did you even start that process?
To be honest, it wasn't even really hard to start dieting Joe, because like both of us have a pretty clean diet, regardless. And as someone who's been like perma-bulking for 30 years, he has a really good foundation. So honestly, it was just, he was the type of guy where it's like he ate 3 square meals a day of, like breakfast, pre-workout, whatever.
Single
ingredient,
whole food,
yeah,
like composition.
And then at night he would just have kind of whatever bullshit he wants. So literally by just taking that out and restructuring it with like 2 actual whole food meals, he responded really, really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was really like, I have always, or at least since its creation or popularization, and even before then, because I wrestled in college, I've been being a power lifter, even though I didn't take it as nearly as seriously as I did later on in my career. But since I was literally an adolescent, like 14 years old, I was always kind of, okay, I need to get enough protein. I need to eat enough. I need to blah, 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 So I was always orienting myself towards like pretty whole food meals and just fitting in the rest of the stuff with whatever I needed to get like an adequate amount of calories in to supply energy towards my training. As I got better in powerlifting after breaking my first like open all-time world record in 2020, I knew that in order to continue to improve, I had to tighten up the margins, because that first all-time world record was in the middle of me owning a gym, and I was surviving on probably like 1 whole food meal a day that I actually cooked, core powers throughout the day, like random shit that I could grab, and then like Chipotle or a big thing of rice and chicken and bullshit, or like literally Wendy's.
And then I came along, and then you hit multiple more all-time records.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying, because it's like I tightened up the margins, and then kind of, even though up until the bodybuilding it wasn't as regimented, it was still like whole food meals throughout the day, and then just bullshit like raiding the pantry or ordering some food or fucking whatever in the evening. It was still oriented a lot more towards productive whole food, like vertical diet aspect of things. And then even beyond that, then getting into the bodybuilding prep and just truly structuring it where I wasn't just pretty much following a meal plan, but it was eating like a specific 5 meals every single day, in the orientation of like a guy who maintained his weight on like 5,000 calories a day. There is a good bit of, not wiggle room, but a good bit of freedom when it comes to implementation of like macronutrient structures, macronutrient timings, and like pulling a variety of levers in order to like get different things to happen at different moments. Because when we first started my prep, it wasn't even a prep. I literally was just like, I just want to get leaner. I'm a little over fat, and I wasn't even that fat. I was just like, I just want to get like lean. I just want to cut, and I talked to Brie about it. I had never, when we first started dating, she was like, I'll do your diet for you. Cause she had done that. That's like what she did for a living. And I was always like, I don't want to let my girl control that. It's going to be weird. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. But then after I coached her through her powerlifting, like that run of breaking the world records that she did, and like winning the Abs Pro in 2024.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah,
August.
Yeah. Winning the Abs Pro and like putting a cap on that, we had a lot of discussions during that time, because it was like just personal stuff, like tumultuous period, not anything between us, but external stressors, blah, blah, blah. And we had a conversation, because it was like, hey, this is going to be difficult, like me coaching her, but I'm the only person that she could rely on or like have faith in to do it properly at that current moment. And it was like, hey, if we're in this for the long haul, and I fully intend to spend the rest of my life with her, I believe she fully intends to spend the rest of her life with me. It's like, this is just another thing that we are either going to have to conquer, or it's not going to work. And like the name of the business is adapt or die. It's like the second option, it's not really a fucking option. We're going to figure it out.
And I honestly think that we like do our best work together, because a lot of couples can't be authoritative figures to each other. But I think that the way we do it, yes, there is yes, you have to listen to me in certain moments, but a lot of it is really collaborative, which I really enjoy. And we have a lot of respect for each other as athletes. And when we got into this prep, I kind of gave Joe like a come to Jesus moment. It's like, okay, if you want to be the great athlete that you can be, you need to fucking take it serious. And I know that you care about this shit, but your actions don't necessarily line up. So if we're going to do this, we need to actually do it, and you need to get your head out of your ass.
And that's the whole comment. Like, I mean, we could make this fucking podcast about like relationship stuff, because that's like, it's very valid, because how often do we hear the basis of any functional relationship is communication? And I disagree with that. I don't think that's true. I think the basis of every effective and like fundamentally good relationship is respect. You have to respect your partner as an equal, and your partner has to respect you as an equal. So, because if you don't do that and then you have good communication, that may not mean that you are going to value or place as much importance or just value, I guess. I can't think of a better word for it, but like, you won't take their words as seriously as you would if you fully, like, if they were coming from you. You know, and you have to believe that they have, and especially as someone as accomplished as Brianny, it's like, of course they have value. Of course they mean something. So I was in a little moment where like I got hurt in October of 2024.
Like September, October.
September of October 2024. I had my left meniscus tear after I had already torn my right meniscus a decade prior. And the rub of that situation was that happened in an accident that wasn't my fault. So it just kind of was extra aggravating, irritating, frustrating from the perspective of a seasoned athlete who's already gone through so much stuff. So it was very much a why me, like, God damn it moment. And I was in my shit. I was in my head. I was sad about it. I was fucked up over it. But Bree, being who she is, we can have a very realistic, very straight up conversation. And she's like, hey, I know that this sucks. I know that this is shit, but you're going to what are you going to do? Are you going it's adapt or die again? Are you going to fucking just sit here and be in it forever? Or are you going to figure it the fuck out? And we figured it out. And with that first initial approach into the diet, where it wasn't even a prep, it was literally just orienting my meals in a way to have enough calorie load to supply energy to the training, and then just evenly spacing out most things. Like it's not going to be uncommon from a lot of what you've heard previously. A lot of people have spoken about, but like my carbohydrates centered around my workouts, less carbohydrates in the evening, more fats in the evening, like evenly spaced protein feedings, a variety of fermented foods like kimchi. I didn't have kefir, but like
sauerkraut,
kimchi, sauerkraut, Greek yogurt, and just like greens, pretty much like baby spinach a bunch, and just like whole food single sources. And that was really just what we rocked with for a lot of the prep. And then getting into December, January, that's where I kind of had the real come to Jesus moment, where it was like, okay, I can't do the powerlifting thing right now. I've done this for 17 years. Who knows what happens in the future, but like my body isn't just there right now. And I don't want to risk blowing my legs off, or like double quad rupture, or some additional herniated discs or something that'll completely make me deviate from my entire life projection of being like active forever, because that's my intention.
You see that with so many lifters, like especially they go for one last one, and that last one is absolutely catastrophic. It changes the trajectory of their entire athletic career. And it's like, we could try, could you do it? You're a tough motherfucker, but at the same time, it's like, what do you have left to prove? You're the best pound for pound squatter in the world. You've done this for 17 fucking years. It's time to try something new.
It really just seems like everything aligned for this to be the perfect time to kind of pull the trigger on this. Was that the case in your opinion?
Yeah. It just happened really like organically, honestly.
And it fit. I initially going into it, I was like, man, I don't know how I'm going to like it. But the more I got into it, and when I really kind of oriented myself towards like it not being this like, oh, maybe I'll do a show. But I remember I went to sushi with Jared Feather, and we were talking, and you should have Jared on the podcast. Actually, that'd be a great guest. He's very, very, very smart.
He's on the list for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. But he and I went out to sushi. I think it was me, him, and maybe Paul or something. And he was just like, dude, pick a show, like pick a month, pick like March, April, and just fucking do it. And we had that conversation. I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. I felt really good about it. It felt very good to feel like a novice again, and to be like, okay, I have this new thing to work towards, and I suck at it. but being able to tangibly see improvements at like such a rapid rate because it's something new, that was something that I haven't had in my adult life. So it was very, very cool, very fulfilling, and it felt really good to go through the whole process.
Awesome. Now let's talk about the training a little bit, because this is one of those things that it's so polarizing on the internet, especially now because, flavor of the month, I think now it's high intensity, low volume, fatigue management. It'll be something else in 3 months and everybody will fight about it and make stitch videos where they're on top of each other, yelling at each other and all that shit. But regardless of what, because by the time this airs in a couple of weeks, it could be completely different. Who knows?
I know. Yeah.
But
I know.
Coming from the perspective of two people that have trained in multiple sports, and two people, because I've heard you guys on other platforms speaking about before, understand utilization of energy systems from more like creatine-based workouts into more glycolytic workouts or substrate utilization workouts, and manipulating things like rest time, manipulating things like your number of reps, but based more on physiologically what's going on inside the body. How much attention did you pay attention to things like that, and how much of a transition was it from what you were doing prior? And did that change at all during prep?
I feel like you weren't as anal about your training when it came to like rest times and like energy systems and things like that. It was simply just work fucking hard and get the work done, because like our training with powerlifting, like, yes, obviously he's not doing a max squat or like a set of 5. There was actually minimal like spinal loading within your training because of the past injuries with the QL and stuff with meniscus and stuff like that. But I think the reason why we both gotten so good at powerlifting is because we don't necessarily train like powerlifters. Yes, there's extended rest times when it comes to your compound lifts, but you should be training hypertrophy all the time. Like there's never a time where we've done less than like 10 reps on an accessory movement, such as like a hamstring curl or whatever that is. So really it didn't change a whole lot. There was just not things like back squats, not things like a regular competition bench or a deadlift. They were replaced with things like machine chest press, incline Smith machine press, hamstring curls, belt squats, RDLs, things like that. So
that's talking about like the exercise selection due to like my specific individual like needs and the context of this particular situation. But the key word that you used was like intent and intention, because this is where all the kids making the TikToks and the reels and the stitch videos and the blah blah blah, this is the shit that they don't understand, because you can only truly understand it if you've been in a training environment for an extended period of time. Because I wouldn't even necessarily I've used in previous instances, like having specifically oriented like creatine focused days, like glycolytic focused days, restorative focused days, like anaerobic versus aerobic style days. But like the way that I kind of looked at it going into my bodybuilding prep was just kind of like a food pyramid. It's like, okay, what's the base lever? What's the base layer that we need to address? I need to have a sufficiently adequate aerobic system to sustain the training that I'm seeking out. Then I need to have a sufficiently adequate like anaerobic and aerobic glycolytic system so that I can fulfill the energy needs to particular muscle groups, and blah blah blah. I also need to have an adequate amount of like neurological capacity to create the tension that I need to create and to sustain like the top end exertion of training that I need to elicit a certain response for. It's just like keeping those things mindful, or staying mindful of those things while you are training, and then also thinking about what each individual aspect of that little visualization of a pyramid needs to be addressed in my context. Because my previous experience as a powerlifter, I've been a powerlifter since 2007. That is a huge amount of my life. I'm very, very good at neurochemically upregulating my ability, getting hyped. That for anybody listening to that, it basically means I'm really good at hyping myself the fuck up and damaging the shit out of my body. Mm-hmm. I can use my muscle tissue to like a motherfucker, and I can go from like not a lot of motor unit recruitment to a shitload just by cranking a dial in my head and focusing really, really hard. That is very beneficial when we think about powerlifting in the context of like moving 1 or 2 or 3 reps in a very, very like violent, efficient manner. But the thing about bodybuilding, and again, this is the stuff that like you say this to one of these TikTok kids and their head will explode, but it's not about mechanical advantage. When you think about bodybuilding, you generally want to put yourself in a very mechanically disadvantaged position to stress particular muscles in the most stressful way possible to elicit the adaptation that you want, which is more damage, more stimulus, and ultimately more growth.
And I think a big thing that we did for you, especially as someone who has that like the nerve damage and things like that, he had done single side, like, how do I say that? Not bilateral. Unilateral movements. Jesus. He had never really done like any unilateral specific training. So we added in a ton of that, especially for his delts and his lats, because that is two muscle groups that he has a really hard time connecting with. So we actually became training partners, and I get coaching from Amanda Kahatsu. She's Keon's fiance,
who is Mr. Olympia 212
two times. Yes. And so basically I just created a training plan that was kind of similar to mine, but more tailored to what he needed, so that we could train together and I could actually help him connect to movements that he needed to. Because with classic powerlifters, it's like you already have pretty good legs and hams. He has insane glutes. Like, he's probably one of the only people whose glutes overpower his back. And so it's like, we just need to blow up your back. We need to blow up your arms. We need to blow up your delts. And that was a really, really big focus for us. And one of that is a big focus now, because even with his training now, he's only doing one leg day a week. The rest are all, pull, push, a dedicated arm day, things like that.
And knowing what type, talking about the pyramid, like knowing about, or maybe not a pyramid, but like a pie chart. So like knowing which one to throw prioritization at regarding intent, because with my one leg day per week, I'm very, very good at honing into using my quads, glutes, and hamstrings to move shit. I'm very good at causing damage. So I can, on that day, the reps are lower. I can more readily tap into like that neurochemical aspect. And I only like on my leg days, for leg press, I have one working set. That's all I need, because I get in, get out, and I fucking destroy myself every week. I'm like, I literally did nothing that day. Like, I trained legs yesterday. I'm fucking limping because I'm fucked up. But when we think about, okay, I haven't had as much experience, in air quotes, using the musculature in this specific way to like move weight, to elicit responses, to just be good at using that particular tissue in the context of delts, arms, lats, because when does a power lifter do so? So that's when you kind of switch that's when I would switch the prioritization. And rather than thinking about, okay, I need to crank myself up for one really effective set, I am going to allocate more time to spend there with like more glycolytically oriented training, more volume. It's the Sam Sulik methodology, spam delts. It's just, that's the stuff I can't connect as well. So that's where a greater like shotgun effect is going to have a better chance to drive up that connection. And in 5 years, maybe I won't need to use that much volume to elicit a response. But in the current moment, different musculature has different characteristics in any individual's body, because of that like little gap between like the neuromuscular capacity, coordination, whatever fuck verbiage you want to use. You're just not as good at using it. So you can get a little bit more leeway in how you want to apply it.
Because it's like you're using those, it's like you're training like a novice for those particular muscle groups.
Yeah, because like I fundamentally am a novice in that context. And then it's just working backwards from not only the goal, but then working in conjunction with that particular person's previous experience and their current ability, and the understanding like, okay, how are we going to get an appreciable effect here, but also not put them in a position where it's just like, oh, well, the TikTok kids or the common conception is, well, 2 times per week frequency is best. And it's like, yeah, on paper. But if you are an elite athlete when it comes to using your leg muscles, maybe not. If you're a novice when it comes to the upper body, maybe you need more. It's specific intention with specific context.
And I love that. And one of the coolest things now, because this is episode 32 or 33 as far as my recordings, bringing on incredibly intelligent people with a lot of practical experience week by week, you start to notice similarities, and everybody has their different approaches, and everybody's N of one, and everybody has a different thought process. But there's certain things that you kind of hear reoccurringly in different ways. Maybe they're wording it differently or articulating it differently. And it was just yesterday I was having a conversation about volume with Dom Kuza, and Dom had mentioned something where I was like, oh shit, that's awesome, because I do the same thing. And it's generally looking at more of a Gen Pop client, because we're going into the situation just not knowing really what they've been doing. And he made the point that when he's reviewing training videos, and again, I do the same thing, if I'm seeing a little bit of a lack of the ability to generate intensity, I'm automatically going to go higher in volume to kind of make up for that. And he mentioned the exact same thing. What it sounds like is you're approaching that from kind of like the opposite angle as an elite athlete. You're saying that when you have not a lack of ability to generate intensity, but it's more so when I have this fucking insane ability to generate intensity, let's downregulate the volume there and just dedicate it where or elsewhere, places where you might need it more. And that's keeping in mind you only have this limited window, everybody does, of recoverability, so to speak. So it's kind of like allotting the volume where you need to do more volume and saving the volume in the areas where you can just get it done more efficiently. That's awesome. And I always like to take a little bit of extra time to break down the points that I'm like, okay, everybody needs to fucking pay attention to this. And that's one of those points. That is fantastic. How did you guys change the training as you went? Because I know there's different approaches. As like food gets lower, some people think that's the time to drive things up. Some people are driving the intensity down at that point in time. Did the volume and frequency change as you were going at all based on food intake or maybe escalation of PEDs or anything like that?
A little bit, but not really, because while the food, because, okay, so he started out at like 5,000 calories, okay? And just because someone might be eating 3,000 calories in prep, that's different if their maintenance is 5,000 versus someone who is just has to eat a lower amount of food. So it's low to him no matter what. But his food never really got low. Like we were reverse dieting him the last 4 weeks into the show. He never went below 250 grams of carbs per day, ever.
At 2 awesome. Weeks out, I was eating 4,000 a day.
Yeah.
So I was in regards to like how some people have to empty the clip in regards to effort, where it's like you got to suffer, you got to starve a little bit, you're going to be hungry. I was never one of those guys who was like not eating a lot. I was still consuming a good bit of food, but as PEDs escalated, as things got higher, and as my body fat got lower, and not even my body fat getting lower, but the hardest part for me was maintaining that level of body fat for how long I did, because I probably could have. My competition was on April 19th. The window that I was thinking was like mid-March to end of April, maybe even early May.
You could have competed end of March.
I could have competed end of March, and I may have like. It might have not has been as like shitty at the end had I done that, because that really maintaining that degree of body fat is what fucking destroyed me. It was really fucking hard.
Because we didn't even really change the training. It was more so managing fatigue, as in getting him to, hey, maybe you feel like shit today. Okay, maybe you need to take an extra rest day and just push that session to tomorrow. Or it was the hardest thing because there was a lot of days where we capped his steps at like 5,000. It's like, as someone who gets 12,000 without even thinking, that was the hardest part to manage.
Yeah, because I'm one of those guys like Drew. I'm sure you're similar. Like when I'm talking to clients or like on consult calls, I'm pacing around the house, or I'll walk outside, or just it helps. ADHD motherfucker. It's like I got to be moving. I got to be doing something, you know. So having that like cap, it was hard. It was more on the psychological side of things. That was probably the most difficult part.
Yeah, because we had a conversation where he was like, I feel like I need to push harder. I feel like I need to work harder. And it's like, this is not powerlifting. Whoever works the hardest doesn't win. It's about who looks the best. You are chasing a look, not a performance metric. And it took a while to like get that into his brain, but he finally got it towards the end. Of course, when he was feeling like shit and could barely like walk, he was sleeping in the recliner because it was too much to like go upstairs to go to bed. But
it was crazy. But we're sleep divorced like half the year. But in that context, also, that's where you like. This is where a big thing that I kind of stress in the shit that I put out on social media and just talking to people in general, like understanding like the basic levels of like what shit is doing, or like what the context is going to dictate. in a certain moment, because if I'm on a shitload of DHTs, I add in oral steroids, I'm able to recruit even more motor units than I normally would be. I'm able to elicit more damage whenever I'm training. I know that to be true. So common conception, people are like, you get closer to the show, you gotta push, you gotta keep pushing in the gym, or else you're gonna lose muscle. Like you gotta fucking go harder. It's like, show up and get it done. Honestly, dude, my last 4 weeks, I was like on autopilot in training. I wasn't hyped at all. I wasn't doing the mental arousal whatsoever. It was just very, very focus driven, very, very like I was quality repetitions, quality contractions, quality time spent in the stretch and the lengthened positions, and just getting 1 to 2 appreciable sets in for a particular muscle group, getting a pump, feeling like that stimulus occur. And I'm like, I'm cool. I'm good. You know, it was more so about understanding that in my particular individual experience, I, even with the muscles that like they're less in tune, they're less experienced than my lower body. They're better utilized, or they're not as utilized as those other muscles that I have. I'm still an elite barbell athlete, like in a lot of different ways. So even doing like side laterals, just 2 sets, I achieve what I need, be done. Like some people, if they don't have that base layer of experience, they may have to allocate more, and they can't generate the intensity that they need. Like Dom had said, they may need to increase volume as they go into a show, or they may need to increase some variable, or like use our particular oral steroid or some type of stimulant or whatever to achieve more of like a drive during training. That wasn't my experience, because I have that ability like inherently, plus the drugs, it's even more so. My training was like, it wasn't that exciting. It was just my basic stuff. Volume stayed very similar, even cut a little bit. I didn't train my lower body for the last 3 weeks going into the show. I literally had
like a couple sets.
like
leg extension, like single joint movements, like leg extension or ham curl.
Yeah, and beyond that, it was very, very much focused on the recoverability, because like I work on analogies. It's like I'm speed and fucking fast, dirty, nasty, hot, whatever. Like I'm a top thrill speedster type thing. I don't need to do this like continual effort and build. It's like zoom good. But if you zoom too much, the wheels are going to fall off. And we actually had that happen. I didn't talk about it much, but I tore my pronator teres at like 5 weeks out.
Doing an adduction.
I was using the adductor machine and gripping the handles on the side, and my fucking arm popped, and I was like, what the fuck? And I'm like, shit, dude, and I can't turn my hand over right. And I'm like, oh my God.
That's the interesting thing about like PEDs with bodybuilding and powerlifting. It's like with powerlifting, you know, you do add an injectable like anywhere from, I'm speaking from my experience, probably like 10 to 8 weeks out, and you use maybe another oral or something like that. But with bodybuilding, it's a little bit of a lot of different shit. Mm-hmm. It's very odd, but
yeah, it was aggressive dosing.
But you got peeled.
I did.
Aggressive is it's individualistic to different people.
Yeah.
Before I go on with that, I got to say that's the first case I've ever heard of somebody stabilizing themselves to the point of injury. So that's nuts. That is wild.
I was pissed. I was like,
he was like, my show's over. I can't even do it. I'm like, dude, just calm down.
I couldn't tell what it was at first, and I thought I've ruptured and surgically repaired both distal biceps tendons on both sides. I thought my bicep went again, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? I'm like, I was so mad, and then it was like, okay, it's fine, but like, God damn, it was crazy. Fuck, it's Winstrol, bro. Fuck that shit.
So I'm going to go back on what I said shitting on the Stitch videos. Every time one of these kids makes a video about more stable exercises being better, I want you to chime in and be like, listen, motherfucker.
Yeah, wait till you hear about Joe Sullivan.
Y'all don't know.
The dangers of stabilization. Yeah. Jesus. Let's dive into the drug world, because we started to touch on that a little bit. And again, just going back to what I was saying before, it becomes this whole other world of wild shit when you're looking at it from, let's let's realize how these things actually work. Let's look at how this, alkylated oral steroid on the first pass through the liver is going to have a neurological change or a neurological effect on how you actually train, as opposed to just like Winstrol makes me harder and what everything else, like what it's really doing. So that provides such a unique perspective that I'm so stoked that you guys have. But let's start from the ground up on this one. When putting together a course of anabolics, how are you guys choosing, and I know past experience plays a role too, but how are you guys choosing, like, what am I going to bump my base up to? Am I going 19 nor am I going DHT? And then Brianny, from your angle, from the coach's eye, what are you seeing visually that's making you go, oh, we need some of this or more of this, or need to kind of flip this back and forth? So for performance and from the actual visuals, how are you building that course and how are you adjusting it as you go?
Well, I think a lot of it was honestly really collaborative, to be honest, because he already has he's really in tune with how he reacts to certain compounds. So it was just
and a lot of experience.
Yeah, exactly. So, obviously you have the base of like tests and things like that. And I think did we add Masteron? I think it was.
Yeah. Cause I ascribe to a lot of like the principles of like the safer use methodology and like harm reduction, where it's like test mass primo. Mm-hmm. Those are like the principal things you can rock with a lot of the time, as long as blood work is cool, and blood work will generally stay pretty cool as long as you're covering all the prerequisite bases like health supplements, cardiovascular ability, like managing stress, blah, blah, blah. Like you're going to be pretty okay usually. And it was mostly test and primo up until like,
then we took away the primo once we wanted you to get, like, for lack of a better word, harder and a little bit drier, I guess you could say. So we took that out and added some Masteron, added more Masteron actually.
Yep. And it was basically like just not establishing baseline, but like remove the primo, would reach it, because luckily we have a good relationship with a couple of HRT clinics out here. I can get blood work relatively like frequently, and I'd still have to pay for it, but it is like, it's just very easy to do it out here.
Yep.
And
same thing, I understand.
Yeah. And it's like, if you have the ability to actually see what's going on under the hood, you can put yourself in a position to make even more informed decisions rather than just using like performance metrics or like visual metrics.
So I think we got blood work like twice within the prep, like once before you started, twice within the prep, and then like 5 weeks after.
Yep. Yeah. And it was just basically, when we remove the primo, recheck blood work, see like where things are at. Okay, this is where like the estrogen is at. This is where the testosterone, liver values, lipids, blah, blah, blah. Okay, add in the Masteron, titrate up the Masteron as we head forward.
Then we add a little bit of tren about 6 weeks out.
6 weeks out. Yep. And that was mostly for like, again, we're talking about like the performance metrics and like being able to, from that perspective, I think I would kind of say it was from like an efficiency standpoint,
and because being more neurologically like up, because you started to really decline cognitively.
Because my ability to function was starting to take a hit. So we added in the trenbolone at like a really low dose. I think 70, it was 70 a week. Just for that, like honestly, for that cognitive, like it acts on like the amygdala. It makes it easier to access fight or flight. Yeah, it is probably a net loss in regards to stress management, but this is in the context of going into a bodybuilding show. It's like, you just kind of got to fucking bite down a little bit. So It was test at like, I think I was at like 300 tests, 800 Masteron, and like 75 mgs of tren at like 6 weeks out. Then like we titrated up the tren a little bit. At that point, also added in Winstrol at 50 for that same like efficiency standpoint of like the neurological upregulation to get more efficient training done in a quicker period of time.
And for a cosmetic look.
And for the cosmetic look, like dual benefits. Same with all these like heavy hitter DHTs, like the high dose of mass, and then adding in the orals of like, and the trenbolone, and then adding in the Winstrol. And the Anavar. No, I didn't add Anavar.
I thought we did.
No, I wasn't on Anavar.
Oh, we were talking about that, but we switched to something else.
Yeah, but because the something else was at 2 weeks out, we added in Halo. And that for me, that's like a longer period of time than I would normally be on Halo for powerlifting purposes. Because in the context of powerlifting, it's like get in, get out, talk about like maximal expression of strength. This was more so, okay, it's going to have the cosmetic benefit. It's also going to have the ability to tune into like motor unit recruitment and get more out of your training. But then also, it's not so much getting more in the sense of like, I want to move more weight. It was more along the perspective of I want to elicit more of a stimulus so that I literally have to train less hard. So I'm exposing myself to less of a chance of either increased fatigue, digging a hole that I can't get out of, or like actually injuring myself because I'm doing too much.
And when you're on that many DHTs, hunger isn't really an issue.
Yeah, I was not hungry at all. Like, because, this is where we get into like the little goofy bro science aspect of bodybuilding, because like it was a realistic thing. I was 300 pounds when I was 14 years old. I was very, very over fat as an adolescent. And having that experience going through puberty, being obese, having a lot of fat, I still, the scientific literature like tells us that like fat cells don't eliminate, they don't get destroyed after we go through puberty. They can only empty, and they're still available to be filled with water. So like I'm very prone to subcutaneous inflammation. And with that said, at 5 weeks or 4 weeks out, we decided to remove all seasoning, all artificial sweeteners, all like artificial anything. So imagine how disgusting this shit was when I was on a fuck pot full of orals and DHTs, and I was confined to using 2 packets of Redmond salt per meal, and then eating meals of 400 grams of rice. I was like, dude, this is ass. But we did it, and it resulted in like a very good
first showing,
presentable physique. When I originally signed up for it, and I'm like, I don't fucking know how I'm going to look up there, but I did. One of the things I'm most proud of is like all of these factors and all these variables that we considered, whether it's the PEDs or the little like stupid interventions like no sweeteners and whatnot. It resulted in me like actually looking and being like, hey, I look like a bodybuilder. I don't just look like a power lifter who got super shredded. It's like I actually look like a bodybuilder. So it was an accomplishment.
And eliminating the sweeteners and stuff like that. Some people have polarized opinions on one end of the spectrum or the other, but that's just one of those things where you're going to have one person that can do them the whole time and one person whose physique completely changes if they utilize even a little bit. So removing them is the smart call because it's one less variable to deal with.
Exactly.
So it's definitely, in my opinion, the right way to go. And then, after a while, that Redmond sea salt's going to start tasting like the best thing on the planet if you have nothing else.
That and some honey on top of chicken, rice, and banana. That shit was fucking fire, bro.
The food combinations deeper you get into bodybuilding are so weird.
Yeah,
they taste so good.
It's so unhinged. And I'm still putting fruit with my meat and rice meals, and it's like I don't know. It's weird. It's whatever.
Then eventually it wears off a little bit, and you're just like, I thought I loved white fish with mustard. What the fuck? This tastes like shit now. So
I'm going through that right now, bro. It's like nothing has been tasting good, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like I haven't even talked to you about it, but I'm like, no food tastes good. I'm like, I don't know.
That's good. You're less food focused. You're just using it for a singular purpose rather than just enjoyment all the time, which is what you used to do.
I know. It's funny.
So.
Well, plus you're not deprived. If you've been in prison for 20 years, 5 minutes with TV is going to be great. Meanwhile, we're here just scanning Netflix. So nonetheless, what about the fat burners? Because you made an interesting point earlier that I think relates into this based on your ability to just kind of tap into like crazy high intensity. That tells me that you have the ability to flip a switch and drive your nervous system into this really sympathetic state, which is a hell of a tool. But in my experience with clients and with myself, that tends to easily go overboard with me with stimulants and whatnot. So did you do a kind of a traditional titrate the dose of Clen up? Did you use Clen? Did you use anything else? What did you go with the fat burners?
We did use Clen, but we didn't titrate up. He stayed at 40 micrograms the entire time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because I am very sympathetically oriented. Like if you haven't listened to the recent Huberman Lab podcast talking about the vagus nerve and how to manipulate that, anybody listening to this, you should listen to it. It's a very good listen, and it's a good topic to consider because that's one thing that I fucking suck at, bro. I'm so fight or flight. Even having improved substantially, it's like I'm very, very sympathetically driven, and I'm very sensitive to stimulants. I don't need a lot. So it was very much.
We used yohimbine,
yes.
but like 5 milligrams.
Yeah,
but.
and it was very much that. Like I just hung out at 50 micrograms or 40 micrograms of Clen for the entire prep. We added in at, I think that was like 12 weeks out.
It was like 8 weeks out.
No, it was longer than that.
No, because when we consulted with Cam, that's when we added in yohimbine.
Oh, it was.
Yes.
Oh shit.
So like 7 weeks out, we added in yohimbine.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, because we spoke, we had a little bit of help, like orienting the last bit of the prep, just because she had not actually gotten anyone on stage before, and her coach Cameron Cheek, who is a homie of both of ours, he's very, very good. Also, would probably be a good guest. He's a fucking goofball like all of us.
Yeah, but he acted as a consultant role through the last like 7-6 weeks of the prep, just to make sure I wasn't fucking anything up.
Yeah, and it was cool because she had another individual to act as like a self check, but every decision that she made and every like orientation she had put forward for me, Cameron was like, "That's a great idea." So it was reaffirming it. It made me feel good to like see her get that validation, and I have to imagine it felt good for you too. So.
But plus, if you have resources, use them. Use your resources.
Exactly. You know, and yeah, so like I really just hung out at that dose of Clen. I did the same type of like mechanistic leveraging that you've probably had other guests talk about, like the pre-fasted cardio, Clen, yohimbine, caffeine, injectable carnitine, small dose of growth hormone. Go be a fat burning machine, fucking get after it, come back, have post cardio meal, chill out a little bit, go actually train. That was literally my routine.
Because his cardio was pretty low the entire time. I think the max he got to was like 300 calories on the elliptical 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah.
But then the last 3 weeks of prep, he wasn't doing like any cardio. He maybe had 1 to 2 sessions a week. And then the last 2 weeks, there was no cardio at all, just steps.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was really just like, I know
you coasted in.
Yeah. Knowing my background and my just the ability of everything, like not only the ability to like flip the switch and like wake up and like do what I need to do at whatever like level of arousal I need to do it at, but then also possessing the like knowledge of like how can we leverage these not pharmaceuticals, but leverage these, like whether it's the non-androgens or the androgenic stuff, to orient myself more towards fat burning. It was just like, let's do this as efficiently as possible. And I think that's why we were so successful, because it was just like, how can we do this in the most efficient way?
Because the hardest part was just to get him to slow the fuck down, because with powerlifting you have like this big crazy peak that you're building to, whereas bodybuilding is like this really slow burn for like 16 weeks, you know. So whereas with powerlifting, it's like you have pretty chill but intense training, but then about 6 weeks out things start to really ramp up, you know, but it's like in short little bursts.
And that's what was so weird and like such a learning curve for me, because my experience, because like we talked previously, very good at recruiting motor units, very good at damaging myself, very good at getting myself wherever I need to be, no matter how I'm feeling. And it was the opposite. It was like inverted. Like I was up and like fucking busting my ass back here at like 16 to 12 weeks out. And then the last little chunk, when my normal conception of the situation as a powerlifter would be like, fuck yeah, dude, turn it on. Like we're fucking doing it.
And
I was like,
chill.
It was like, no, dude, like chill out, like hang out. And I'm like, this is fucking dumb.
It's like a total shift. It's like a total mindset shift.
A very different experience for a lot of people's first prep, because it's like very rarely are you ready early for a show. You see that with a lot of seasoned competitors, like in the pro league, but not for a first time competitor getting stage lean for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. But
1000%.
Yeah. But it was a good experience. And that was like how I told everyone at the beginning of it, like I've been a professional athlete for a decade. And even though I'm a rookie bodybuilder and I'm new at it, I want to apply that same type of professionalism and like execution of professionalism to this new space. And I did it. So that's a thing I'm like super proud of. And I hope I impressed you.
Yes, you did a good job.
Well, I was going to say, not for nothing, you did pretty damn good from the outside looking in. I mean, the results really spoke for themselves. I want to touch a little bit on the gray area or the alternative market PEDs like the carnitine, and then I want to swing into like peak week and the show itself. But before I have to turn this into kind of like a selfish, now we're just going to talk about something that I think is really cool thing real quick, because you mentioned the whole like drive to be sympathetic and the harder time going into that parasympathetic state. Have you heard of the pulsetto, or have you used any of the vagus nerve e-stims?
I told this bitch, do it, run it.
Dude,
I'm fucking buying one. God damn it.
He's like, I wish I would have asked.
I fucking love it. I've had one for about 3 months now, and I'm the same way. Like, my ADHD is my superpower. It's the reason it bought me my house. It secured me all my nice things, but it also fucks up my personal life and fucks up my sleep. The pulsetto, I put that bitch on. I do 2 10-minute rounds about an hour before bed. It literally just e-stims your vagus nerve, and you just chill out. Like, I sit in front of the electric fireplace. I'm in Florida, so I crank the AC up and turn the fireplace on. And I just let that thing do its thing. Like, you crank it up pretty intense. I mean, you definitely fucking feel it. And it gives you this wild, like, kind of body buzz. It calms you down a little bit. You pair it with like a low dose edible or something like that, and you are literally in heaven.
Okay, we'll get one. We'll get one.
Dude,
best $300 ever spent.
Yo. If you don't have a code, rip this as a clip, fucking send it to him. Like, DDT podcast, bitches. Like, where's the fucking code? Come on.
Dude, I'm trying. Like, I'm getting codes with everybody who I buy their shit just because I want their shit for free. So I'm just like, I'm not trying to make money. I just want free shit.
I get it, dude. But I've seen that fucking thing on Instagram, and it was like my birthday was like earlier in June, and I was like, man, I should have fucking seen this and she's like, it's another gadget that you don't fucking need, and I'm like,
I know all the time and never. He uses it for 2 weeks and then it's done. Like he bought a Nintendo Switch for prep at like 6 weeks out. He played it for 1 week. He hasn't touched it since.
You'll get way more mileage out of the pulsetto. Like, it's fucking gnarly. Like, and dude, I buy plenty of shit I don't use. Like, I have a Carbogen CO2 inhaler right here. That's awesome, but I never use it enough. I have my sauna. I have a cold plunge. Like, the pulsetto every fucking day. Like, it is. Okay. Yeah, 1,000% endorsed.
Because we have a sauna and cold plunge too. Never use it as much. We need to get the cold plunge set up again.
I know. But
buy the pulsetto. So let's segue back, because everybody else that doesn't care about that shit's like, what the fuck is going on right now? Carnitine, you mentioned. So I'm a huge proponent of carnitine. I have 30 vials on my desk at all times because I'm afraid to run out of it. Same. But what about any of the other gray area, like the injectable cholines or the combination thereof, anything like an ITPP, or what about peptides? Like, what's some of the outside the box stuff that you may have used, and why or why not?
You did use injectable ITPP pre-fasted cardios on some days initially.
Just for like the oxygen up, or the uptick in like the upregulation of being able to like utilize oxygen, because that was the biggest thing, like being able to just deliver more oxygen to the muscle tissue, deliver more, like make the red blood cells more viable in terms of transport. Maybe theoretically, in some sense, like maybe that would help with fatty acid shuttling or like mobilization. I don't know. Maybe, like, it's all that like theoretical gray area where like it could work.
But if it gets you 1% better, it's like, why not try it?
And I used a little bit of the peak VO2 from Better Through Biology prior to some of the cardio sessions. And one thing that I found to be really, really beneficial, because my sleep got destroyed during prep. Like, I was struggling very, very hard, which is why I see something like the pulsetto and I'm like, I'm going to fucking buy that, because like my sleep was dog shit. And I know, like, we got blood work done at like 2 weeks out and my cortisol was like 46. It was horrifying, but it's like, okay, well, that's why I'm waking up at 3 a.m. and I can't fucking go back to sleep. And Jared is currently experiencing the same goddamn thing, but he's also the leanest he's ever fucking been. So it's like, you just kind of deal with it. But I would use the ITPP like in a high dose, like 3 cc's or even more than 3 cc's, some evenings to just get better restful sleep, because I also have sleep apnea. And just if I'm able to really kind of max out my oxygen saturation while I'm unconscious through the combination of peak VO2 or like ITPP, because I have the pace too, like if you don't want to pin yourself, and then just wearing my CPAP along with like, because I mouth tape and CPAP, it just puts it basically like maximum. Even though if I'm only getting like 4 hours of sleep, I was like, in my brain, I'm like, I want to max the 4 hours that I'm getting, so I'm just trying to get as much out of it as I can. So that was something that I utilized pretty like liberally at those moments. Like it was more so like not an all the time thing, but if I was feeling pretty fucking beat or like I really needed to like get some restoration, that's when I would throw that in. Also the injectable glutathione, that stays in for me like year round, just
Same.
from like the restorative sense. And then we did use the injectable carnitine. I used to rock with like the combination carnitine and choline a lot more frequently, but I haven't used it as much, and I didn't use it during prep just because I didn't really need to with the other interventions where it was like I was on the DHTs, I was on the orals, I was already very good at the connectivity aspect.
I didn't need any more like mental stimulation.
And the big thing from the injectable choline that I found, it's very good at driving that like motor, that like neuromuscular facilitation, like the connectivity, mind muscle connection, whatever. But it was like, I don't really need it. And it's another injection I just don't want to fucking deal with right now. That was the biggest thing. Because one thing a lot of people don't consider or won't consider if they don't get into an actual bodybuilding prep is like the relationship between like stress management and inflammation and the actual quantity of injections. Because if you get to a point where your immune system is already like tapped the fuck out in regards to like, I want you to adapt to stimulus, and then you're also injecting yourself with like viscous fluid 5 days a week of being like anabolic steroids, and then on top of that like not an oil-based thing but a pretty thick fucking solution of like carnitine, choline, and ITPP and whatever else, you're just kind of like kitchen sinking the immune system. And I wasn't worried about it, but knowing my previous experience, I was pretty confident I'd be like getting to the point where it's like we're gonna get some fucking knots, shit's gonna start like locking up. And I didn't want to, when it is from the orientation of being like, this is about presenting a physique, that's the stuff that you kind of have to consider. Because we pulled all injectables
10 days out,
or like 2 weeks out, 10, 14 days out. And just sometimes people don't think about those things, but it's another like entire situation aspect to look at.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, how did peak week look? How did you guys structure that? Being ready so early, did that change your initial game plan and how you would peak for the show? And then how did the actual show go? What was your experience on stage like?
It was a lot more food than he was expecting.
I was eating a lot, man.
Like there was he was like loading the entire fucking week, which was interesting, with carbs, not just like fat loading and then adding carbs later. So it was pretty miserable for him, honestly.
Yeah, because pair that with like pair that with the orals that I was on, the DHTs that I was on, the very like neurologically up shit that I was on, my appetite was non-existent. And I was laughing at myself and being like, this fucking sucks, because normally people are going through peak week or going through that last like 2 week period where they're like, I'm so fucking hungry, I'm waking up and I can't sleep because I'm hungry. And I'm literally sitting here with like a mixing bowl of chicken, rice, banana, honey, peanut butter, and I'm fucking gagging I'm literally going like,
because he also would only have like 2 or 3 salt packets max with the meal.
Yeah, and that was a constant thing. And then like like doing the force feed trick where it's like you get some food in your mouth, you chew it a little bit, you put some water in your mouth and like chop it up with your teeth and then just gulp it. And it's like, oh my fucking God, dude. But like it sucked. And I did not think that was what my experience was going to be. I thought I was going to be fucking starving. I was fully prepared because I said I wrestled in college. I was fully prepared to be like, I'm gonna fucking die for this shit, bro. Like I'll fuck it. I'm gonna be like the dude in the hoodie, like just like. And there were moments where I had to be that guy in the gym and like get my stuff done, but I stayed eating the whole time, and it was really about trying to stay as relaxed as possible, staying as parasympathetic as possible, just chilling the fuck out realistically. And then applied that throughout the entire peak. And this is where I have to shout out Cameron, like big time, because Cameron,
amazing
like,
at peaking.
Yeah, like the peaking, because he basically took the reins
so that I could just
like
be
7
more of
weeks
like
out.
a support role.
or not 7 weeks out, at 7 days out.
Yeah.
So Bree could just be like here to help me like get my food. Cause at that point the wheels were fucking off
she was stuck in the fucking recliner.
She was like dragging me. So she was like making me food, doing all that stuff. I stopped taking client calls at like 3 weeks out. Cause I was like, I could just fucking can't, guys. Like we're going to do voice messages. I love all of you, but like, give me a fucking minute. But it was great because Cam was literally checking in with me like multiple times a day. And that was one of the most difficult parts that I didn't anticipate, was the amount of posing that I actually had to do, because it was multiple posing rounds, multiple check-ins every day for the last 7 days. And it was a lot, bro.
To take your morning weight, your night weight, midday check-ins.
Because at that point, we're kind of taking into it, like I'm weighing myself after each meal, like midday, end of day, literally portioning out like particular amounts of water per meal so we could visually see. Because again, this is about a representation of a physique, so we could actually make note of how much water will result in this look, how much food will result in this look, what's like the most amount of food that we can get away with where it won't negatively impact like how large my trunk is, so I can have more of an aesthetic visual appearance, blah, 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 you know. And Cam was just on his shit. Like it was really, really impressive. And even though like I told Bree and I told Cam, like I probably like, learning what I learned and experience what I experienced, probably like, because this was more of like not a conventional bodybuilder approach, because it was very different, but like there's a lot of different things that I will plan to do next time in regards to like the PEDs, because I know that the orals were like a positive and visually, but I also think if I stuck with more of like just something like higher dose Masteron, because I can tolerate a very high dose of Masteron or Primo, or a combination of those two or others, I think that I might have had a better time had I like saved a little bit more room for like my digestion to be okay. And I think like if we minimize the orals, could have a positive effect in that way. I don't know. But
it's all just a science experiment.
But going through that, it's like Cam showed like how care driven he is. And it was really fucking impressive, because like, it was like, it's how I felt really good about it, because that's how, like, I know that's how much I care about my clients when they're like in the shit. And he was just doing it the same way. And I was like, this is really cool. It was cool to be on the receiving end of it, you know, because I haven't been before. So it was very, very cool.
It's always very inspiring to speak or work with other coaches that are really passionate about what they do, because it almost kind of like motivates you. And that's not to say that maybe you've gotten lazy or anything like that, but it just kind of that reminder to be like, oh shit. Like I spoke to Paul O'Neid a couple weeks ago, and
yes,
he's awesome. Amazing.
Paul's such a good dude, and he's somebody that just like his level of care for his clients is so high. I remember I signed off of that podcast, and there was like 5 minutes where I was like, I'm a piece of shit. I need to check in on everybody. Like, it's just like, and I mean, I'm very attentive to the people I work with, but then you speak to somebody that's like that personally invested, and it's just like, oh man, that's like, it's like a kick in the ass, which is amazing. And it all goes back to what I was saying before about getting people cut from a similar cloth, albeit different like walks of life, and you hear the same things over and over again, which is amazing. So I know how things went because I was following on social media. In fact, going back to your level of fatigue, we were originally scheduled for like 2 weeks out. And I remember I saw something, you put up a clip or something, and you were just going batshit in the gym. Like you could tell you were digging deep. Yeah. I remember I was sitting there and I DM'd you. I'm like, hey, do you want to go a little bit after the show? And it's like, yes, please. Thank you. Awesome. I'm like, yeah, I think that's a good time to push this one back a little bit. So, and the podcast has blown up since then, so it's only better because we're elevated more. But how did it go? Like, what was the experience like? What was the end result? Like, what did you do after?
Oh, dude, it was awesome. It was very different than what I had ever experienced, because like previous experience powerlifter, it's like this big acute expression of like load 850 on the bar, be like, I'm the fucking man. Y'all are here to watch me like fucking beat the world. You know, like big explosion, fireworks go off. You know, bodybuilding, it's like, okay, show day's here. I'm like, I'm pretty chill. People are in the back and they're like, dude, are you nervous? It's like, oh my God, what's going on? I'm like, no, I've damn near killed myself with weight before. I'm going to go up on stage in my underwear.
He like got off stage and he was like, that's it.
I literally, my first, and this is no bullshit, my first initial assessment, like the 10 minutes after getting off stage, I was like, this is not PC. I apologize in advance. No one quote me. This is Xbox Live gamer speak from early 2000s. I was like, that was fucking gay, bro. Like, that was dumb. Like, what the hell, you know? And it was cool, but I was like, I was expecting more, you know, because I have like the powerlifting experience, and I was like, that was it, dude. That was you know. But then being there on show day and like having the support that I had, because I had to have like 40 people in the crowd.
Yeah, there was a lot of people
that like showed up for me, and it's like I have amazing people in my life.
One of your old friends from college.
Yeah. Like one of my old friends from college, a dude that I hadn't seen since like 2016 was there. I'm like, what the fuck is going on, dude? And it's like I just had a lot of people show up for me, and I had other competitors in the back who competed that day tell me that I inspired them or like motivated them to do the show because of like my willingness to just talk about my shit. Cause I've always been a dude who just fucking talks on the internet. And like the fact that I could motivate other people or like inspire people in that manner, it was such a good feeling. And it was like Bree said about the prep and the orientation of the prep, it's more of a slow burn. It felt like a slow wave of like, just honestly, euphoria. Like I was just sitting there, and I like was sitting with myself in the back, and I'm just like, oh my God, I haven't felt that level of accomplishment in decades, you know. And the amount of love that I felt, the support that I felt, and just like it's an indescribable feeling. And I can definitely understand how people get hooked on that, you know, because that feeling right there, as the culmination of like every decision that I made over the course of 16 weeks. Cause I said I wanted to apply like a professional approach to this. I didn't cheat. I didn't deviate. I every time I was like faced with a choice where it's like, what should I do in this moment? I thought like, what would a professional bodybuilder do? And I made the decision as such. And having made those decisions, said no to the meals, no to the temptation, like stayed present in the moment. Cause I really tried to not be like a dickhead or like be one of those guys where it's like, I didn't want to make her miserable. I didn't want to make other people miserable. I tried to stay very, very introspective and very present throughout the whole thing. And I generally succeeded. Like there were moments where I was fucking irritable, but like as a whole, it was pretty good. And just sitting there and being like, God damn, I did everything, every moment of every day up to this to get to here, and I fucking did it. It was like, damn, that feels good. And it really, really felt good, man. And it was it's an interesting perspective to have, or like thing to experience, because like I won my class. I lost the overall to the guy who won the overall as like the overall champion. He's like a seasoned bodybuilder already. He's competed at nationals before. His name's Sean Kreiner. He's a homie. He's a great dude, family man, like works fucking hard, and he looks fucking killer. He's built nuts. And like losing to that guy for the overall, and then having like professional judges, having fucking Jay Cutler tell me that if he wasn't there, I would have won the overall, or like you can still get a pro card, like go do nationals, blah blah blah. Just having people that they're bodybuilders to tell me that, I'm like, damn, I felt really fucking good about it. And then having done that, having won my shit, like lost the overall by 1, and then like going out to eat with my family and my friends and my people afterwards. We went to Barry's. It's a nice steakhouse out here. And like I basically ate like a whole seafood tower to myself and like a steak. And I did have a cigarette and like a couple of martinis, because I was like, for some reason I was like hyper fixated. I'm like, I just want to fucking drink. But doing all of that, feeling that euphoria and that like sense of accomplishment, and then going to eat that food after, it really like made me think like the food is cool, but like that feeling is so fleeting. It means so little compared to that sense of accomplishment that I felt. And it was just so like empowering to be there, because like I was being a formerly obese kid. I've always been so food focused. I'm like, what are we gonna have for our free meal? What are we gonna have for this? Blah blah blah. You know, but going through that and then sitting in that moment and sitting next to Hunter Henderson, who was really struggling that night because she is still in prep, but she was also in prep at that moment.
She was eating her shrimp and veggies that she brought.
And people were literally being like, just have a bite, just have a bite. Me being able to like speak to her and say like, hey, I'm eating this right now and I'm enjoying it. I won't lie to you. It's very, very good, but it tastes like shit compared to what I felt 4 hours ago.
I feel like a lot of bodybuilders or a lot of people will like blame the sport for their shitty relationship with food, but I feel like it almost made yours even better.
It did. I can confidently say bodybuilding improved my relationship with food 100%. Like I have no disagreement with that statement, because like prior to this, it's like I've still struggled with like my tendencies to like overeat or overindulge and then want to over restrict and like go into that like orthorexic orientation as like, I'm an athlete, I can work this off, blah blah blah, and it's like that stupid exchange type perspective. But this really kind of me staying present and like keeping introspective and keeping like aware of the decisions that I was making throughout the whole thing, and then continuing that afterwards, it's really improved the way that I look at my food. Because even now I'm doing like off-plan food content just to fuck around, because it's like I think it's fun, and it's like the stuff that I watch to melt my brain if I fucking want to. And it's like I'm still doing that, but I'm staying relatively locked in like a developmental phase as a bodybuilder, and I'm still allowing like freedom and enjoyment. But it's just, I can only afford that because of how regimented and how disciplined I am everywhere else, you know, because I still am very lean. I'm still like, I do have more fat. I am fatter. I was like,
he's 20 pounds up from stage weight at like 8 weeks post show.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. I was going to say that's pretty like perfect if you want to really look at it.
And it's like I posed with my posing coach. We both did like a couple of days ago, Joey Belt, and he's like, "You're fucking nailing it, dude." And it's like which
is high praise from Joey, because Joey will tell you if you're fat.
Yeah, he's the most straight up factual dude ever, for better or worse. But like, the whole experience, like coming out of it as like Joe Sullivan bodybuilder guy now, I feel really fucking good about like where I'm at. And I feel as though it's like, because I'm not saying I wasn't this before, but it's like made me even more of an introspective, like present oriented individual. And it's just, I feel like it's been a net improvement to like, honestly, my mental health and my perspective. It's been really fucking cool to experience that as a guy that's already had like close to 2 decades in barbell sports.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It just sounds like overall you picked the right time to do it. You were ready to do it. You made an informed, intelligent decision to do it. And then you guys both handled the process like, go figure, responsible professional adults. And I think when you approach it that way and you do it for the right reasons, you have the ability, if you are a mature adult in general, to draw that type of conclusion at the end of it and to take the experience for what it is and be able to make all the personal progress gains as far as, now I look at things this way, now I can do this next time. And then above all else, or maybe not above all else, but now next time you choose to do it, if you do choose to go for another show, you have this entire foundation to build upon, and it only gets better from here. That was fantastic, guys. I gotta say, like, the way that we were able to break things down and just your experience as a whole, I think that'll help a lot of people, not just first-time competitors, but people that have been competing for a while and maybe not putting the pieces together as well as you guys were able to construct it. So absolutely phenomenal. I would love to get you guys both on again. Brianny, I'd love to do an episode more on just female-specific stuff, because I think that could be huge. Yeah. And Joe, we hit on basically everything I wanted from my notes, but there's little things like I have written down here, pre-workout, psilocybin, and stuff like that I think would be really cool to dive into. But that's a whole other conversation. Both
absolutely.
of those are.
Yeah.
Until then, guys, where can people find you? Where can people find information on your coaching, your business, all your platforms? Where do people that might not know you yet go to find more from both of you?
Well, we're teaming up with coaching, so Team AOD is what we're under. We do have a website that's linked on Joe's. If you want specific coaching just from me, just send me a DM on Instagram at Brianny T, BRIANNYT. My DMs are always open, so same with Joe.
And same with me. Like, we're both chronically online like everybody else in this space, but it's theaodcollective.com or Joe Sullivan _AOD on Instagram. Always open for a conversation, whether it leads to coaching, consultation work. And one thing that I do want to make note of and have people like keep on their radar is, speaking of Paul Oneed, he's helped me develop my own version of this. I'm going to be launching a mentorship cohort in August to help try to elicit some positive change in the online coaching space and get people to think from this more broad of a perspective and make people more effective leaders, coaches, and individuals for the people that they interact with. So it's something I'm super excited about. But like, we're all chronically online.
Yeah.
Just, you can find us, DM us, we'll get to you.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know personally I will keep an eye out myself for that coaching platform, because that sounds amazing. That sounds like something that a lot of people could benefit from. Guys, thank you so much for your time. This has been the DDT Method Podcast. Until next time.